I should be logging in on my computer in about 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have it. I just
Do you want me to kind of give my little spiel?
let me just get this set up. I want to
Okay.
rotate it so it's okay. I think that'll do it now. So let me get it up and then you can tell us what you want to do there.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Oh, very nice. All right, so that is our office at 117 Russell Street. And what we're doing is we run Kitchen Concepts there right now. And we're proposing a Class 2 used car sales area for this area. It's like I said, 117 Russell Street. We have the plan up, and basically our main goal is to supply vehicles for our fleet, which is 5 to 7 vehicles, and then keep 1 to 2 cars for sale daily, probably more like 1. And then that way we can turn over our vans and some of the other vehicles that we have. And so we had some requirements that we had to meet for this. Some are for the town, some are just generally for a Class 2 license. So one of the things that we have to do is have a sign. So we have a sign on the front pole of the building called Northwest Auto Sales 2. It's 18 by 24. I'd be hanging up there, so everybody can see. One of the other requirements we needed was lighting. So at this point, we have 4 corner lights that wash just over our parking lot only, not over into the other areas. And we think at this point that should be enough for the cars. But if the board thought that we needed more, we could just add more. Thirdly, we had to get an office, a comfortable office for people to do paperwork, wait, and or talk about business. So we have an office in the back with 228 square feet, I believe. And that would be, for the customers and for me. And then most importantly, we have parking. So we have 16 parking spaces. For the car dealership, we'd have 1 employee parking spot, 2 customer parking spots, 1 delivery and repair parking spots, and 2 spots that are designated for cars only, which would leave for Kitchen Concepts 2 employee parking spots, 3 customers parking spots, and 2 additional spots just as, kind of for overflow. So I think with this, I think we meet most of the things that we're asked to meet. Do you guys have any other questions or requirements that you think we need?
Where is 117 Russell?
117 Russell is right next to just past Cumberland Farms, coming from Northampton on the right side.
It's the old post office, Jim.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right.
Yep.
Where is your green space?
The green space? Meaning
Yes.
grass?
Well, you're supposed to have 20% green space on the property. Where is it?
It's on the left side and in the rear. So there's we actually have a whole rear area that we're not showing. We only showed the parking lot. So the grass area on the left of the building, and in the back, we just actually didn't include it on the plan. I didn't realize about the 20%.
Okay. Well, how large is the parcel?
That is a good question. I don't know the exact size of the whole parcel, but
85
rear.
by 154 square feet minimum.
What's that, sir?
You could read it on the plan there. It's 85 by 154 and probably a little bigger than that. So a minimum
Yeah.
of,
Okay. Yeah, that's actually only the parking area though. So in the back,
Oh.
there's at least another 100 feet of grass space. by 85, and then there's a side spot. I could probably have that information for you guys tomorrow.
Second of all, total square footage of the sign is going to be,
That would be, yeah, that, I think that would be, I don't know offhand. I think it would be 3 feet or so. 3.5 feet. Did you guys want more?
so you said 24 feet by 18 feet. So
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I meant 18 inches by 24 inches. I apologize.
that makes it clearer. Okay. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you
Okay,
for the
there
help.
we go. All right.
Yeah, so thank you for the help with that. So as you can see, we have 154, so that would leave 100 feet in the back of just pure
Okay,
grass.
so you got plenty of green space. Okay. All right.
Have you ever sold a vehicle here before, from here before?
No, we have not. So part of the reason we're applying for this is my wife's father-in-law. My wife's father had a dealership for ever since I've known her for the last 23 years. So we've been using his license for our fleet vehicles for all that time and for ourselves. And so he recently retired and moved, and we lost access to the auction. And as I said, we turn over our fleet vehicles a couple a year, and then we usually grab a vehicle or two for friends or family and things like that. So it's been actually just difficult not having our auction license. So we thought that Bill actually, her father still wants to sell a car or two. So we kind of put this plan together so we could get our auction license back, and he would still be able to sell a car or two in front of our spot.
Fleet vehicles, is it like U-Haul or something like that, or is it private, that unknown name?
No, it's so we own ASAP Painting and Kitchen Concepts. So ASAP
Oh.
Painting has 3 vans, and then Kitchen Concepts has 2 plus our vehicles.
Okay, so goes with the business.
Yeah, so the
Okay.
vans, and then we have another company, First Choice Storage, that is going to contain a vehicle or two too.
So what's the name of your business you want to hear?
Northwest Auto Sales 2. I had included this with the package, but this would be the sign.
Northwest Auto Sales 2?
Yep.
Oh. Okay,
Yeah, her father had the first
Yeah.
Northwest.
okay.
Her father was number 1.
The sign is externally illuminated, or is it illuminated at all?
We have lights right there. It's not illuminated as is, but we can actually point a light at it if you guys wish.
No, we're not asking if you don't, we're asking if it will be. It's up to you whether you want to do it. If it's not illuminated, that's up to you.
Yeah,
Who-
we have a light right there, so it will be seen.
Yes, as long as it's not internal.
Who are your neighbors?
Our neighbors are
Korean restaurant?
Korean restaurant, and then Janet Huckowitz owns an apartment right next to us, so she sells pumpkins and stuff over there at different seasons, and rents out to the people there.
And the church across the street and the courthouse.
Yes. Yep. Quite businessy.
Speaking of which, is that kid out of the hospital that was hit in the crosswalk?
Oh, geez, I hope so.
Right there.
That is a tough spot to cross. I wouldn't let my son cross there.
Yeah, those lights are so high, it's not exactly the most visible thing in the world. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just my 2 cents.
really nobody knows what to do there, and actually when it starts to go. But we were hoping it, on our property, the fence over where we keep the cars for sale, is a little dilapidated. We'd be getting a new fence over there as well. So we'd want to keep, a nice spot as we do now. Our buildings in, a very nice space, and we keep everything landscaped nicely. So we would do the same for the car dealership.
You're muted, Bill. You're muted, Bill. You're still muted.
You gotta get the cat to unmute you, Bill.
You're still muted.
Cat's
Okay.
got your tongue.
Yep. Same business hours as your other operations?
Yeah, same exact. So the only hours that we would be open are the hours that we're there during the week.
So
And
that's
if-
9 to, or what is it, 8 to
4.
5, 8 to
8 to
4,
4.
Monday through Friday?
Yes, and then actually, that's when we're open Saturday, but the car dealership wouldn't be.
So I'll make a motion to waive further site plan approval for Northeast Auto Sales 2 for up to 2 vehicles for sale per the attached plan, operating from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday.
Second,
Should we list the total number of vehicles he plans to park?
I said up to 2 for sale. That's his other business is operating, so
Okay,
I think this is the change, so
okay,
just keep it focused to what town hall is looking for.
right.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. Hearing no other questions or comments, all in favor? Aye.
aye,
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you guys so much.
I will get this email out to the building inspector, but you still gotta go through all the other, obviously to the town for any building modification, but also for your license itself.
You got it.
I
Well,
will-
thank you guys very much. Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
I will be sending you something, just a sign and return, explaining what this does approve and what this does not approve.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Nobody else.
Nobody else.
Mr. Comia, you got early tonight.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Still recovering, Jim. I feel like when I had my meeting with the town last week, I was slowly losing my voice. I lost it over the weekend,
Oh,
and now
boy.
I'm trying to get it back. So,
So did you go out for Halloween as Kim Carnes or?
no.
or
So
Bob
yeah,
Holler?
it's been a while since I've seen the board, but I shared with the board yesterday. I understand that, and having talked to the building department, that there is some thought about looking at private events and special events and how that's addressed within the context of your zoning. So initially, what I presented to you were two drafts. This represents language that when I was the town planner in Southbridge with regards to the agriculturally related uses, is what the town did and wanted to explore for some of the uses and events that would happen on agriculturally zoned lands or what would be determined as a farm in town. So Bill, I'm just gonna quickly share my screen.
Let me just double check that I have enabled that. There. Go ahead.
So initially, what I had imagined was providing an opportunity for the board to look at this, which was agriculturally related uses. So this would basically be a place in the bylaw which could address things like this mostly. The seasonal outdoor mazes, petting farms, wagon, nature trails, picnic areas, educational classes, lecture seminars, which would be approved by your building department. Where the planning board would be involved were some of the more intense uses. So things like turning the agricultural products into something of value, wineries, historical agricultural exhibits, any sort of area which would have a parking lot of at least 20 or more vehicles, commercial or cooperative kitchen. This list is not exhaustive, but I think, you know, there are probably other types of uses that are agricultural in nature that could be listed here, where it could just go through a site plan review process. And then in Southbridge, we identified special permits that would be issued by the planning board for these types of uses, restaurants, and this small scale entertainment venue or organized space, which is typically a commercial entity that would be used on those agricultural farms. So this is a simple, but I think it could be administered relatively easily. However, you know, this is a stab in the dark. I don't know. Obviously, having understood some of the conversations that you all have with farmers in town, is this too restrictive? Is this, does this not get at what I think some of the intent or some of the things that I've been hearing in town with regards to those types of uses and their impacts to the right of ways or abutting properties, that this wouldn't address that. And what I also shared with you, and we don't have to go to that one yet, but is another bylaw that we just adopted, or that I helped the town of Granby adopt, with regards to private event venues and creating that as a use, requiring at least 10 acres of property to use this space for however they would want to use it. That removes the agricultural component. But this is very specific to agriculturally related type uses. But since this is the first time that we're talking about it, I don't know if there's any sort of initial thought.
Has something like this passed by any other town in the area?
Central Mass. So Southbridge, Sturbridge, Spencer. So there are some Worcester County.
So this has, all my question is, this has been approved to some extent by the Attorney General.
Yes, yes, by Attorney General, Town Council, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, that's an excellent point, because certainly we are aware that there is an agricultural exemption, and but how big does it go, or how unusual does it go? I know when they had the when Montgomery Roses had the transportation center for their roses and calla lilies, that seemed like a broad interpretation of agriculture. So it's not running afoul of what we or they assume that is allowed under the agricultural exemption.
Yeah, I would say that with regards to the agriculture exemption, I think it is one of those ideas that has to be tested, and that is how the town will rely on past precedent on how that may have been explored in the past. From my understanding, in having met with the building department for the permitting guide, which is also something that we'll be talking about in the next couple of months, but the agricultural exemption, I believe they were not necessarily reviewing structures, which I think the building department. So if it passed zoning, it wasn't necessarily going through a building department review, which I, put a big question mark next to, and I approached the building department regarding that. But I do think that because the agricultural exemption is tied to receipts and tied to a certain amount of value that you are creating with your agricultural product, that that is truly what, if you have a product, that is what exempts you. But I think that there is an opportunity based on past precedent, based on this passing in other communities, that if there happens to be another intense or accessory use to this agricultural use, that there can be a permitting mechanism by which the planning board or the building department or a special permit could review a certain type of structure or accessory use to the agricultural component. So I think that that's the test. And, you know, the planning board having oversight and maybe some coordination with those that would review these types of structures or uses when they're brought to town. If there's any insight with regards to past permits that you may have looked at, or you didn't touch because you thought there was an agricultural exemption, I think that's important to know as part of this process as well. But I will say that I think the town can regulate additional uses on top of the agricultural component, specifically if it's related to impacts to the right-of-way, safety, health, and those types of protections that the zoning allows for. So,
Okay.
Oh, doesn't Barstow's have something every year up there? I don't want these farmers to have to come before us every year to request permission to do something which is traditional or whatever, a pumpkin party or whatever for kids.
But on the other hand, Michael, a lot of organizations want to have visits to farms or something like that.
What do they want?
They want to visit farms. So they
Oh.
think that because the Barstows are inviting people to see their digesters, there's certain farmers that just don't want them on their property. And I don't want to mention the names, but some of them have some sophisticated breeding going on, and
Right.
somebody will come with their kids and their dogs and scare the animals, or so perhaps it is better to be in the hands of the planning board rather than have organizations think how cute it would be to go pet the animals at the Sarzinski's farm.
Yeah, I don't see this as an annual thing, Mike. I see it more, something like Barstow's store or North Hadley Sugar Shack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's come in once, go through your parking, your driveways, the types of events you're thinking of, and will it support? Just like we're doing site plan approval, we don't go back to Walmart every time they have a sale.
Okay.
yeah, that's exactly correct. I mean, somebody wants like, we'll pick on Barstow for lack of, they're probably the more longer term ones. They have a once a year festival. Okay, you know, we're not trying to have any real control over that. It's the one that have the once a week festivals that we're really going after are more often than that. You know, that the ones that a once a year issue is a once a year issue, but a several time a week issue is a different story.
How would it affect the, for example, the asparagus festival that's on the common?
Well, that's not a farm, is it?
No, that's a town sponsored event.
I have a question, and it may be stupid, but you guys can probably answer. Do we have a definition in our definitions for farm? Because in what Ken put up, it said a farm can have all of these in any district. And so what if I've got a half an acre and I call myself Mark's Farm? Now I can have a petting zoo and I can have.
Mark, we specifically referenced the state definition of farm,
Good, okay.
which is, I know it's a minimum 5 acres, and it goes on and on and on about income and certain
Okay.
percentages of local versus certain percentages of state property of state crops, and it's a, I want to say it's several paragraphs.
Okay,
So Ken, my first thought looking at that proposal that you put up is that some of the definitions of agricultural, what your agricultural component is, seem to be a little at odds with chapter 40A. 40A, for example, does not require that everything you sell be something you have grown, as long, or you don't have to grow it on the parcel where you're selling it. You can
Yeah.
grow it on other parcels, or you can buy it from other Massachusetts farmers.
And I think your bylaw addresses, or maybe I've been looking at so many different bylaws, but does your bylaw address the ability to sell products that are produced elsewhere? I feel like,
I don't think we really speak to that. We really don't have anything on that.
I thought it was a certain percentage, no?
So we've been basically letting people do the I'm a farm stand on the honor system.
Hmm.
And we really haven't been sitting down and auditing them and asking them to show us how much they sold and how much of what they sold is something they grew and how much of what they bought from others were from Massachusetts farmers, things like that. We haven't really asked for that. It hasn't been an issue, but yeah, it's something that is, people are trying to, make all sorts of side hustles work for them here. And I think some corners are getting cut.
or could.
yeah, I mean, I think, so this is the approach that would just address typically what you define as a farm. And so agriculturally related type uses where you could presumably see those types of uses that, in the draft that I shared with you, and then
Yep.
have the ability to have a special permit for something like a restaurant, which is not typically a agricultural use, but obviously there's a commercial component to that, but it could sell agricultural products that are grown on the property. In addition to things like having weddings at a barn that you may have on that property. And many towns are regulating that type of use. Because that's not related to agriculture. So you couldn't say,
It's not, but it may be fairer to do it that way, to say, yeah, you can have your ice cream stand and you can have weddings in your barn. As it happens, probably 3/4 of Hadley is zoned agricultural residential anyway.
so I think, as I mentioned, the other approach that the town of Granby decided to employ was there was a property owner who had 10 acres that was some of the property was productive farmland. And she approached the planning board with coming up with regulations for allowing for her type of use, which had some existing buildings on the property, and probably wouldn't impact her neighbors as much. But in Granby, a use and the private event venue where we established a private event. And there are some standards that are required here. I think they're probably typical standards that you would find. Parking should be all on site. That there's adequate water, wastewater facilities, either permanent or temporary, approved by the Board of Health. Requires other permits, no overnight accommodations, buffering on the sides, any other type of zoning requirements, signage and lighting, which is probably typical. And then application requirements where you provide all of these various components of an application, which would then go to the planning board for a special permit to identify this particular property, whether or not it has an agricultural component, as a property that could have special events on it. And would be a one-time type of thing. Obviously, you'd put conditions on it in your decision. However, I think that there would be that may address the specificity by if you have certain parcels in town, that this could address that, especially in the agricultural residential district, where presumably you'd find these types of uses. So that is another option that passed through town meeting last summer or this past summer and got approved by the Attorney General's office. So this is something I think that the planning board will be taking up with its first application, I think next month. But yeah, that's another, I think, another way to address impacts, and that the planning board would have a say in that particular permitting.
Yeah, Ken, one of the things that was rather controversial was in the town of Sunderland, just north of us. And they were going, one of the farmers was putting up a sawmill. And they claimed it was industrial, not allowed, but he did go to the state for some ruling on it. It was the ZBA, and they said he could have the sawmill there on the agricultural exemption if he was only going to do his own trees. So there are other things. So perhaps somebody wanted to do some mechanical repairs on tractors. That's a possibility too. So do we allow those or not allow those? Or are they exempt?
Well, I would probably say that they're exempt based on that activity could be related to the primary activity of producing
Well,
agriculture.
you make a good point, Ken, because the ultimate resolution on sawmill was he couldn't bring in a lot of other work from other people. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we want to keep working on that and have something for spring annual town meeting.
Yeah, I
And,
think it might be helpful to, yeah, and the thing is, if you're hearing if there needs to be another angle that we can look at this, which I've seen it done, addressing agricultural type uses, because you're an agricultural town if you're not on Route 9, or being very specific and methodical about having large property owners and creating a minimum parcel size by which this type of property could file something, and get that permitting, and go through that particular permitting process. And then others create other types of definitions and are very specific to the types of events that can happen as an accessory to the agricultural use. So, and it's funny because Jim's question about, are there any communities in the valley that may look at, that have some sort of reflection of this type of zoning, other than Granby passing the private event venue? Like I said, agricultural uses, related uses was Worcester County. I haven't found any in Western Mass. Wilbraham has a very specific zoning required that is specific to in their town center, and these activities that happen like sales on the sidewalk, festivals, one-off festivals that happen a year, that wouldn't necessarily get approved by the planning board. It's covered in their zoning, but the building department has the oversight over that particular or the planning board or ZBA, depending on what the threshold is by which they would be reviewing that application. So I think that there's multiple ways to kind of address this issue. It's how the board may want to be looking at this and what they're hearing on the ground. I know that in speaking to the building department, that's something that I think the town is seeking. But I think it's also getting across the finishing line and seeing that you have the support of your town meeting to adopt a zoning bylaw for this type of regulation.
I noticed that Shamorowski's up in Sunland is gonna have a potato festival this weekend or next weekend. I wonder if,
With illegal signs all over town.
yeah,
Yeah. He's got them all over Hadley as well. But it's a once a year thing. And that's one of the items that we're not really trying to address here. We're trying, like I said, well, I think we're
Yeah.
trying to address the repetitive ones that happen a lot, frequently.
So something like the Asparagus Festival is, they get the permission to use the town common from the select board with all sorts of conditions, and public safety is involved, Board of Health is involved.
Right.
So I think that's sort of on autopilot. I'm really thinking this is more the ongoing accessory uses that become regularized. If someone, no one's going to worry when they have cider days and it's like an open house and people park in front of cars, cider house for a while, and then they move on to someone else's cider house. That's I think what we're trying to deal with here. It's the ice cream. Oh, let's sell it every week. Let's have a 21 one-day liquor licenses, so we can have a beer truck there. And that's it. If it's going to be run like a business, I think we want to just have some sense of what's going on and that it's within manageable limits.
Right, yeah. I think this is a real good piece to work with, Ken. I think it's gonna help us a lot to, I can see a few little things may want to refine. But overall, I think looks like a real good piece for us.
Has the board ever reviewed things? I know that in attending some of the meetings where you're either waiving site plan approval or you have a discussion for them to come back before the board, things like food trucks.
Yeah, right.
No, we don't have anything.
Yeah.
We don't address food trucks in zoning.
Right. So if they were to come to the town and say, we want a food truck at the Hampshire Mall, would you navigate some sort of hearing process or invite them to your meeting to listen to see maybe if you can address parking or traffic throughout the site? I know that you did that with the truck, the stakes on the truck, and maybe for some other types of, and I think the COVID tests. But that might be, and as I mentioned in the email that I think I sent even earlier, that some towns are adopting food truck policies. And I feel like that there could be an opportunity if the town had a food truck policy, which wouldn't necessarily include the planning board in the regulation. It wouldn't be covered in zoning. However, the land use boards probably would be, wanting to, understand some of the nuance of those particular food trucks, but it's those types of uses.
Interesting, several years ago, more than several years ago, when Home Depot first came into town. And many Home Depots have a food vendor, almost permanent truck installed on the site.
I remember, yeah.
And the Board of Health and Hadley at that time took the stand that outside of a one-day food truck, once or twice a year, any food truck such as what was going to be planned at the Home Depot would require its own permanent restroom facilities on site. Not porta potties or anything like that, but regular true restroom. And therefore, they never qualified because they couldn't use the Home Depot facility because they were too far away. And so they never came in for the license.
And they were going to connect the hose to the water faucet on the outside, run into the hot dog truck.
Okay,
So that's the only food truck policy that I'm aware of in town is the one the Board of Health made that policy. What? Yeah, Home Depot's been there now at least a good 10 years.
so that was like a day permit that they were, or
No, almost
Oh.
permanent.
Yeah, it was almost permanent.
Just Springfield, it was, they
Yeah.
were out there all the time.
Yeah, because if you've been to the food truck at the Home, I don't think they still have, because I haven't been to the West Springfield Home Depot in years, but they have a hot dog hamburger stand that's there, that used to be there.
Yeah.
All the hours that the Home Depot was open.
Yeah, I think that is something that, as it turns out, a couple of these places have set up with food trucks as part of their attraction. And I think we probably do want to be looking at that. We don't have the same situation, I don't think, as say Amherst or Northampton, where I know Amherst has a big issue about the food trucks because they all want to be right downtown where the restaurants already are.
But I mean, some of the venues that have set up a food truck, they're there frequently enough that it should be looked at, because it's not like a 2 or 3 time a year thing. It's 2 or 3 times a week for probably 20 weeks almost, or so it seems. So that needs to be investigated for sure.
Do we have any in town other than the silo scoops?
I actually don't know.
I don't, yeah.
We have a relatively new inspector for the Board of Health. And he is still getting his bearings on what he has to be working on. He was not here when the taco truck and the beer truck were approved by the Board of Health for the silos. And presumably that means there was no inspection of either before it was approved. And I perhaps Board of Health is where some of this policy should live. But it's something that I think it'd be useful to work on it as part of this event venue. And yes, I'm sure that food trucks are an attractive option for event venues too. If you don't want to hire a caterer, you hire a couple of food trucks.
I agree, Bill, that it should be at least with the Board of Health, but do you think we don't have concerns to be in there in case it impacts parking and overflow onto?
It's going to depend on the scale.
Yeah, okay.
And I think as Ken was laying out in the ag tourism bylaw, that there are certain things that the building inspector can sign off on and certain things that need more scrutiny. But I think if we could work out some sort of an integrated ag tourism, event venues, food trucks, that seems to be the wave of the future.
Yeah. I mean, checklist that Ken, I know we're working on, Ken's working on, I think that will be a giant step in getting all the associated parties not so much involved as much as visible to what's going on, that, hey, I should be looking at that. No, I don't need to look at that. Or, hey, I didn't know we were doing that.
Right. Yeah, no, that's the permitting guide that's what it exactly does. So when I reach out to probably entities that have oversight over certain aspects, not necessarily anything land use or zoning related, but they're like, oh, we do that. Sometimes that is a surprise to them. So spelling out the types of permits throughout town, a majority of them are building permits, because there's so many different types of building permits or fire safety permits. But Jim is right that there will be some sort of discussion that entities like the Board of Health and Conservation Commission, but the other types of permits, stormwater permits, things like that would be, explained in the guide, or at least direct you to the part of the zoning or other regulations throughout town, and where those live. So that's really the effort to make the town and the various volunteer boards more visible, and also basically give them the responsibility, or at least that they know they have that responsibility, which maybe sometimes it's a surprise to them.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
What else do we have for Mr. Comia?
Jim and Bill attended the housing production plan that is ongoing according to plan. That should be completed, the planning, by the end of the year. The planning board probably in its first in one of the first meetings of the new year, I'll present that to the board, but it should be for the board to adopt it, and then it goes to the select board, and then submitted to the state to certify your housing production plan. So that's, yeah.
Can you have for the rest of the members of the board, could you kind of give a 10,000-foot view of what's happened so far, Ken?
Yes, sure. So we had our community meeting last Monday or 2 Mondays ago now. It was attended by, I think, 15 or 16 people, and it was over Zoom, virtual meeting, where we asked various questions related to housing that are supposed to be integrated along with the 276 responses from the survey into the community engagement component of the plan. This plan requires, it's very prescriptive, so you have to do a housing needs analysis based on the demographics, based on the current demographics and census data, any forecasting data that we've collected, as well as incorporating the community engagement components. We examined the various constraints to development, so that includes zoning, that includes some of your strategic open space parcels, relying on your open space plan if there are particular parcels that you want maintained, putting those on a map and basically saying the town has looked at this and looked at these things that we are requiring in our housing production plans, and has acknowledged that they've gone through a community engagement process to determine that, hey, you're already over your subsidized housing inventory, so you're already meeting that goal, but this is how you're going to maintain that goal. And some strategies that will be attached to that. So some of the next steps with regards to that is at the next committee meeting, it will be to go through the goals and do some action items. But yeah, and then get reviewed by the state to form. But from there, it's just a matter of approving some of the items that have already been established in your your housing chapter of the master plan, as well as an affordable housing study that was done in 2019. So there are a lot of recommendations that were created and talked through for the maintenance of your subsidized housing inventory. In addition to, just making sure that they're lifted up as items that I know the planning board has been looking at, payment in lieu of, and some of those items related to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that is documented in a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next meeting, Ken. For us.
I am on vacation for your next meeting, so if you don't have any items, we could meet the first or second meeting in December.
Let's try for the second meeting, December 20.
That's fine.
That good for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be here, but that doesn't matter, doesn't really matter.
Are you off at the North Pole then, Mike?
Well, opposite direction. Santa Claus is gonna pay a visit near Bogota, Colombia, and I've been
Yeah.
selected.
There you go.
I don't want to know what's going to be in your sack.
You're right. Last year I ordered a Santa outfit on Amazon. I said extra large, and I didn't open it up until I got down there, and it was small. I don't know how in the hell I got into that thing, but I did.
I don't think I want to see you in a Santa Speedo.
Okie dokie. Well, moving on from that one.
Yeah, let's bring it back up, Jim.
I'll model it for you guys if you want.
Okay.
Sorry, Ken. It's hard to
Thank you,
unsay
Ken.
that, isn't it?
Okay. We'll see you on December 20.
Yeah, I'll stick around if you don't mind, just to hear what's going on.
Okay. Well, I'll see you before then. Several times. Okay. Anybody have anything else for Ken?
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah. Is the housing protection plan, does that in any way address, kind of the elephant in the room that a lot of the people, it's affordable housing with a lowercase a, the people that grew up in town and want to downsize and can't afford to stay in town. Or first-time home buyers who can't qualify for 55 and over. Like somebody wants to do a tiny house or something,
I think definitely it addresses that, in that there were definitely comments that were at the community meeting regarding that.
Okay.
So documenting those comments. However, I think that there are strategies that the town can take a look at, particular to how to use the Affordable Housing Trust funds, or using your CPA to maybe create some programming regarding first-time home buyer fund, having the ability to provide that for folks, among some other types of strategies. But yes, that definitely was a big comment, a group of comments on that Monday meeting. So it definitely is going to be documented. And I think there's some strategies that can maybe address them.
We're in a difficult area. I mean, we all know that the
exactly.
price of house, maybe people say the price of housing is going down because of inflation, because of this, because of that. Well, let me tell you, look at the price of homes selling in Hadley, especially new homes. They're sometimes twice what you would think the house should be worth.
So I have a client who owns some land in Granby that has been cut up for building lots. And they are selling it, a parcel at a time to a contractor who is building on those lots. And and this is public record, not give you any names, but the deeds have been recorded, and they're decent size, like a 60,000 square foot lot, $65,000. The lots on the street near you, Jim, are going for something like $145,000.
Yeah.
Just for the lot. So
Location.
And the houses on the street behind me are selling for fairly high price. One sold for $775
Oh, wow.
and the other one just sold, I want to say in the last week or so. And I haven't seen the price in the registry of deeds yet, but I'm sure it's probably comparable to the one that was just the first one that was sold. And like Bill says, that's public record. I'm not saying anything that's not public record here.
Gee, Bill, what's a lot going for in Plainfield? That you always zing me on.
I did have a client who bought a big chunk of land up there. It wasn't just a building lot, but I think in Plainfield, I'm going to say that they have 2-acre zoning because you have to have septic. And I don't know what it's going for. I don't imagine that it is all that expensive.
Well, certainly the elephant in the room is the University of Massachusetts. It's difficult for the young couple, the older couple, to downsize when they're competing against 7 or 8 students in a house and getting, $900 from each person. I remember the tiny houses. Oh, she's such a nice person. We ought to just give her that one little house to live on. Well, multiply that times 50 or 60, it would be students. It'll be a student park. That's the problem we face. So as noble as the gesture, or as noble as we have an intent for the right kind of people, it's still difficult to compete. So I don't think it's that easy.
And nobody claims that it is. We know it's going to be, the best we can do is put some ideas out, and trying to fulfill those or follow through on those ideas is going to be difficult. Nobody expects this to be an easy thing. But if we at least try, we can't get punished too badly, as opposed to
Well,
doing nothing.
Isn't Plainfield west of here?
Yeah.
Go west, young man.
So I did have a chance to meet with town council last Monday and covered a number of things that were on our plate. So let me update you on that. I put that on the agenda as update from town council. I told her we were definitely interested in looking at event venues and what's agriculturally exempt and what can be done in an ag tourism sort of way. She said their firm has a lot of experience with bylaws along those lines. So we can work with them on that. I did ask about battery-only storage facilities, and I think, Ken, you are working on a model bylaw for other communities on that.
Yes.
She did say that they had no prior experience with that, but they'd definitely be interested in seeing what we come up with. I did discuss the permitted uses of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And it is actually pretty broad. It can be used for infrastructure. It can be used to basically buy an extension of the affordability commitment.
Mm.
So There are,
That's good. If you could extend the years on a existing.
Yeah, so, it gives you a chance to go to some place like Winfield, which is 10 years out, and say, we would, we'd like to talk to you about whether you can extend.
Right.
Interestingly, there was a case, it came up from, it was mentioned in an email chain with our new town council, that the question was if Mountain View comes off, can it operate as a market rate rental facility, or is it constrained by the terms of the Chapter 40B comprehensive permit, even after the limitation period is expired? And it turns out it may be, since we do not otherwise allow apartment complexes. The only way that they can continue to function as an apartment complex would be to maintain affordability.
Or
So
change the zoning bylaw.
or change the zoning, but
Right.
that's a low priority, a low likelihood at the moment.
Yeah, right, but I just pointed out, they got a little
Yeah.
barrier.
Under current zoning, they cannot just transition from affordable to market rate.
Yeah,
There's more to come on this. Town council will be initiating a discussion with the Executive Office of Community and Development. So there's more to come, more chapters to come on this story. I also raised a question. We have a couple of streets that are still out there from before we amended the bylaws where, for example, the developer owned the street, but the developer didn't do anything about turning the street over to the town. They just disappeared at the end of the development. Town council said that would be simple. You just take an easement on the street, so that it's not difficult to work out of that. It seems that's not unlike what we did a couple of years ago with Hawley Place, but it seemed like it was it took a lot of effort from KP Law to make that happen. But current town council seems to think that, that's not a problem at all.
That we should follow through on that one somehow, Bill, so we can get that going with those streets.
Yep.
What are some of those streets, Jim? Do you remember?
There's two of them on Shattuck Road. One is the Morning Star.
I think Morning Star has been accepted.
Okay. There, for the ones further down then.
Okay.
These are the ones that there was one or two that Newton Waste developed. And when the street was sold off, they, like Bill said, they disappeared.
The name of that street, it's right next to Colony.
Yeah, it's hang a sec.
Well, we don't need the name. We can get those.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
there are solutions.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
And then we also did have a little discussion. There was a communications hiccup, and you had noticed, Mark, that special permit language was on the town meeting warrant. There was some confusion. The town clerk thought that the Attorney General was saying that the article that was approved at the Springtown meeting had to be rewritten. And that was not what the Attorney General was saying. The Attorney General was saying that there might be unintended consequences if we use it as we have written it, which basically says that the applicant is supposed to file with the planning board before filing with the town clerk. And the state law says you're supposed to file with the town clerk, who's supposed to forward it to the planning board. As we operate, we actually know about it sooner if we require filing with us. But town council again did suggest that one solution is in our rules and regulations, just to say that there is a complete application requires a mandatory pre-filing conference with the planning board. So we have the chance to review for completeness and then we can, it's kind of like the checklist you're working on, Ken. It's just that we would then sign off and say, okay, you may now file, which is basically what we're doing. Will it require a change going forward? I have no idea, but I think we're fine. It just was a little confusion. And one more thing, I brought this up this afternoon. Got a call from a realtor who had a question about a parcel on the south side of Route 9. And as you'll remember, the zoning map shows that the commercial district, the business district is 500 feet deep on the south side of Route 9. But the realtor noted that there have been several reconstructions of Route 9 since the zoning bylaw was adopted, and wondered if it was moving every time the road was widened, or whether it was shrinking every time the road was widened. I'm not sure it's something we have to address. First of all, there's nothing before us on it at the moment, but I just wanted people to have a chance to think about it. I'm kind of leaning towards that the commercial district is shrinking. For every 10 feet that the road gets widened, the commercial district is 490 feet deep now, because I don't think we can move the southern end of it without a vote.
Yeah.
That seems logical.
Yeah, that's kind of my opinion too. The other way we could probably correct that is to, even though Randy wasn't keen on the idea, use the middle of Route 9 as the starting delineation somehow.
I was thinking about that, but if the state doesn't widen it evenly and offsets it somewhere because of some obstruction, then that might not work as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if they always widen equally. North and south.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Maybe just using the original 500 feet when the zoning bylaw went into effect in 1961 might be the way to do it, like Bill said.
and Randy did say that a surveyor can determine that the 1950 layout, or whatever the layout of Route 9 that was in effect at the time of the adoption of the bylaw, is at the Registry of Deeds. And if you know that that's what you have to work with, you'll make sure you have access to it.
Yeah.
That's an easy way.
So I guess that's those are the updates that I had.
I have nothing else. Anybody have anything else?
No.
No? We have no bills to pay. We're up to date. We haven't spent any money recently. Well, make sure you get your invoice in for the PVPC for the early, by the second meeting, Ken. If not for the
Yes,
first
I
meeting.
will have that for you.
Okay. Do we have to sign off on the grant too, or how does that work getting paid?
Which grant?
The one for the
Oh, the
housing?
production plan? No, that's all handled on my end.
Okay,
Just-
all right.
It's just my work with you.
okay, so all right, so that's, there's no, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If we have nothing else, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved.
Motion
Second.
second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Meeting is history. Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Alex. See you in 2 weeks.
Go
we-
Pats.
Don't forget to vote next Tuesday.
Yeah. Early and often.
Early and often.
I'll
Just
see you, Mike.
once.
Come get me.